Hello, Gaspar.
Hey, Geraldo, how are you doing?
Very, very good. So nice to have you here. And let me give you a context. We are starting a series of interviews about what is the meta crisis for you. Okay, and the idea here is that when we talk about the meta crisis today, it's a lot of sometimes even intellectual discussions and so, but we would like to see from the individual perspective. So it's going to be a number of interviews, maybe a never-ending, how to say, series of where we interview people at the 4D community, dreamers, doers, designers, and doubters, but also from outside. And you are the first one, Gaspar.
Yeah,
Good.
it is
So
a
let me.
great honor.
Very good. So, Gaspar, we met, I think it was like some 10 to 15 years ago. I mean, it was at the very beginning of blockchain, I remember, as a trend, as something that was starting. And I remember that I was working at Group Functions Strategy at Ericsson, and you also worked at Ericsson at that time. And I heard if there is one person I need to talk was you, okay? And that's how we first met. General discussions, more trying to understand how to say blockchain and so. And then later on, as you worked in open innovation, right? You work at the very center of innovation at Ericsson, what was called back then Ericsson One, that worked with startups and all these areas. So you developed this roaming for operators using blockchain technology. So very, very unique. We are at the Mobile World Congress with our feet suffering of 4 days with a lot of customers, very interesting. I remember we are in which I was responsible for the innovation and business models area. And your demo was the one that attracted most attention. And just let me finish with an anecdote before leaving the word to you, is that I was very comfortable because I learned from you the high level, how to say, talk about the product. But the problem is when questions came, then I need you by my side. So you almost couldn't leave to the bathroom during these 4 days. So with that, that's how I remember how we met. But can you please, some words, what are you doing today, for
Yeah, I'm
instance?
I'm uh, I'm a co-founder and CEO of a startup based here in Stockholm, Privx AB. We are in the intersection of this different technology that we use in order to address some of the business challenges. Our main customers actually is from India and also from Indonesia, so we are more active in that part of the world. So technically, some of the technology that I was playing around when I was in Ericsson, blockchain, AI, confidential computing, and all those things. But we fuse it together in order to address some of the challenge in data collaboration, especially sensitive data collaboration. So that is what we are focusing on in this startup. But I'm Indonesian, so this is, I think, my fifth that I took a different residence in my life, so to say. So I uprooted myself from time to time and dealing with the uncertainty, being in a new environment, with new people, a new social contract in certain societies. That actually, helped me as well in order to, sense making of what has been happening in our society. So that is a little bit of my background. So I'm an engineer by background,
Yes,
but I also deal with strategy and business. Typical in a startup, you have to do everything.
exactly. And by the way, we met again for over 10 years, and it was first with blockchain and so, but we developed this friendship, and I admire you so much, Gaspar, because besides the engineer you are and the innovator you are, you also read a lot, right? You travel, you are very curious about life, And so I admire you a lot, Gaspar, and it's going to be a very interesting. I prepared some questions. Okay, so are you ready? So the first question I
Yes, I'm
have is
ready.
the first question I have is how do you relate with what is a metacrisis for you, both from a personal, emotional perspective, right, but intellectual perspective, and what is the word metacrisis? What comes up for you when you hear the word?
Sorry, I mean, there was this jump. I missed the
Okay,
last statement, Geraldo. I think
yeah.
there's some
So
hiccups.
I can repeat. There was some disconnecting here. So when you hear the word metacrisis, what comes up for you, both emotionally but also intellectually?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe I have to frame it like this. What is not to me? For me, the meta crisis is not really an apocalypse, like the end of the world, uh, you know, time in the future that we are heading to. But it is more like a
Mhm.
phase, a transition phase from A to B that we have to deal with. And this is an emergent properties of a complex system, like our societies, for example, right? There are a lot of these different things that's happening. And then this meta crisis happen. Of course, before, I mean, people define it more like in a polycrisis, things that happen at the same time. But this one, my understanding actually, it goes beyond that. Like it's like the meta of the crises that we face as a society. My personal view on this, especially the discussion around this topic, actually, it's a little bit like too. How should I say it? It's a little bit like more like subdue. It doesn't really leave an energy for me to act on it,
Mhm.
even though I really believe that, like any entrepreneur, right? You know, if there's a problem, then there might be a potential solution. If I address it, then it can be beneficial for the society. It has to be. Otherwise, then the society is not going to uh, pay us, right? Being an entrepreneur, right? So
Mhm.
in a way, that's how I define it, and that's why as well the discussion around this meta crisis, sometimes for me at least, it's too vague, right? It doesn't really give
Mhm.
something that I can act even at the individual level or at my
Mhm.
community level, right? I'm part of
Mhm.
the 4D as well, that I can actually take something in order for me to try to do something to make it better or try to address it right away, rather than just going around the circle, thinking, eruditing, or ruminating too much, and that leave me a little bit like more stressful than when I initially started the journey to understand what is exactly it is.
And that actually leads to my next question, because but before that, the word meta crisis kind of resonates with me, because sometimes we need words, right? So to what we are living and perceiving around, and trying to make sense today. And if you go back 25 years or so, we are a little bit like save the corals, save the forest. We are confused, and all of a sudden we agreed it's about climate change, right? And I remember even at Ericsson, company like Ericsson, back in 99, 2000, it was very much like the word sustainability. Not many could write at that time, not at Ericsson, but in many other places. Or let's say there was not an agreement about how to say climate change or global warming. It was a lot of discussions. Maybe it's just the volcanoes, and things like that. So sometimes it was good that all these converged into one framework, right?
Yeah.
But what I like a lot about your approach, and because I also agree, it becomes sometimes very much doomsday and very much intellectual discussions, right? But it's your approach that you often uh, say that we should think more of less about meta crisis and more. And I think first time I heard this from you, that it actually living in a time of a meta opportunity. And what do you mean by that with meta opportunity?
Yeah, I think this is I mean, just a quick reflection when I bump into this meta crisis as a concept, as a framework, right? uh, of course, I mean, we've been through crisis before. There are a lot of changes, you know, when we move from agrarian society to industrial society. There are some crises, but of course, we don't really communicate, and then the social media is not there, you know. So that's why it seems like they are not really as important as right now. Even though I should argue, actually, there are crises in the past as well, right? I mean, there were, and that we
Mhm.
managed to afford that, right? But to your point on this meta opportunity, you know, the meta crisis actually give us the real, like, a calling in order to address this challenge that we face as society, right?
Mhm.
Because I know, I mean, it is not really like a particular problem that we face in our society. It's a little bit more complex. There are a
Mhm.
lot of things that's happening almost at the same time. Uh,
Mhm.
but at the same time as well, it open up the potential for us to address it, because sometimes when things getting worse slowly, you don't really pay attention to those things, right? So it doesn't really give you the energy as well. Like, am I tackling the right problem? Is it, you know, impactful enough in order for me to spend my time, right? And all the effort that I want to put
Mhm.
there. But with this, I mean, I really see the potential, right? I mean, hey, this is an opportunity for us to
Mhm.
address it, right? Maybe the way we coordinate, the scale of the coordination needs to be changed. And also, we can take advantage on a lot of this new technology that can alter and give a lot of,
Mhm.
you know, huge lever
Mhm.
on addressing some of the key
Yes.
challenge, right? So those are
Mhm.
the things that you know, tilt a little bit my view on just talking about the crisis into, like, hey,
Mhm.
there is an opportunity here. We can actually address this. It's just like, yeah, we need to grow our knowledge, grow our know how to engineer ourselves out of this mess that we created, right?
Yes.
So that is the way I actually look at it.
Beautiful. And you know, I heard somewhere, I think it's in Chinese, that the word crisis is actually opportunity as well. Have you, you know? So, so I love to think, and I get much more excited that we think conscious about the meta crisis, but that what are the meta opportunities and how to deal with that. That's how I read, and why it gives me energy when I first heard from you. A lot of energy, Gaspar.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
No, but it's an emergent properties of a complex system that keep evolving, right? And nobody
uh,
knows, and I don't really think the solution we can actually look into the past either. I think we need to devise a new solution to address this.
yes.
But you know, as always, I like to venture out to try things, even though, of course, sometimes I learn the bitter pill later on by being
Mm.
wrong. But at least, you know, I move on the knowledge. You know, this is like a negative knowledge. They're more solid. Usually, you know what not to do, right? So
Mhm.
even if I try and if I'm wrong, that I always see it as a positive things to, you know,
Yes.
push the boundary of what I know.
And going deeper then into this, from the perspective then as an entrepreneur, that you are an innovator, but also as a very curious reader. I mean, you read everything, right? So, what do you feel that is broken, and in how we currently live and organize society? Because this gives also the idea of what are the jobs to be done, right? So to use some
Mm.
of the word in innovation. So, what do you think it's broken there?
Yeah, I think we've seen all this problem. Actually, sometimes it's too reductive. I think it is just like, it is the capitalism
Mm.
is bad, or technology is bad, and you know, this thing and that thing is bad. We always try to
Mhm.
frame it as a very simple problem sometimes, but we have to acknowledge as well, this can be a complex problem that we need to deal in a slightly different way, right? So that's why, I mean, I think don't push too hard to reduce it, because it actually remove the real essence of the problem that we're facing before we really try to tackle it, right? So that is the way I look at the discussion so far, right? Yes, this multi-crisis, poly-crisis that we face, actually there's only like one solution to that. I almost can't really deal with that. Like, is that is, I don't really think it's that simple. There are a lot of things that is going on. It's very complex, right? So that's why I don't
No,
really
I
think.
agree with you, Gaspar. But if there is something that you can give us a pointer where maybe there is most hope that you see emerging today,
Yeah,
what
I
could
see
it be?
yeah, I see actually technology actually as a lever that can provide something that can quickly address the challenge. Because you can't really anticipate the growth of knowledge, the growth of technology, the way we deal with the things, right? So I'm very hopeful on this particular lever. I'm not saying this is the lever, but this is
Mhm.
one of the tool that we actually have to explore. Because of
Yeah.
course, like any other tools, right, it always have this negative aspect, right? I mean, people use it for different purpose as well, right? But technology actually allows us actually to really tackle this in a different way as well. So I'm very hopeful that if we are able to hone new techniques in order to address this, I think we will manage to get out of the mess that we created ourselves. And we have been proven it as well from the past, right? There are so many crises, in the history of our humanity, right? And somehow, through our creativity, our knowledge, and maybe sheer
Yes.
luck as well, we get out of it as well. So I'm not really closing that particular door that we are so, uh, limited in our resource to deal with the current crisis that we are facing as well. So that is my way of looking at it.
Good. So technology as a way sometimes that creates problems, but also can come to find solutions, right?
Yeah,
I
but
am an
let's
engineer, like,
go ahead.
yes.
No,
No, I'm an
let's look
engineer, like,
at the cost of intelligence right now, right? It actually
mhm,
reduced a lot, right, with all this new
mhm,
thing that we put in place, the AI, right?
mhm,
What are the problem that we can actually solve that we can't really solve in the past, and maybe in tomorrow it will be very easy because the
mhm,
cost of solving the problem as well is going to be less and less, because we have this complementary machine that can actually complement us in our thinking, in our decision making. That I'm hopeful. This particular lever, I call it, because then you have the one input, you have the multiplier, and you have the output, right? Technology is like that. It has this effect that can
mhm.
actually address some of the nagging challenge in our society, right?
Yeah. And
Like a
technology,
collaboration at a certain scale, right? For example, we
yes.
know as well, human, the system that we put in place, they are not really scale beyond certain size, right? Like, for example, the Dunbar number, right, is 150, right? Beyond
Mhm,
that, then you need to put a structure, right? You put the organization, hierarchy, etc., etc. But
yeah.
actually, with the technology like blockchain technology, AI technology, you make it easier for a large scale organization like our society in order to
Yeah.
collaborate, right? This is a
Yeah.
collaboration at scale. It's always difficult and it's always complex, right? But then technology can help us a little bit addressing some of the challenges that we are facing in order to collaborate at scale to deal with this meta crisis, as you mentioned, Geraldo.
Yeah. So your belief on technology is where you see hope coming, and I guess also technology together with humans, right? Because it's this interaction that is so key. Besides that, I see that you are always a person that is very grounded, right? with a lot of energy. And you know me, we have known each other for quite long. I'm a little bit more of the person that can get worried about what's happening in politics, the new global order, and this how to say, takes a lot of my energy, and so how do you personally are so grounded as a person, and so when there is so much uncertainty and so much that can go wrong, do you meditate? What is the secret?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I think it's the bias from my upbringing, right? I was born in a very small village in the Indian Ocean
Mhm.
there in Indonesia. It doesn't really take
Yeah.
much to be happy, right?
Mhm.
You know, we know that we will survive, even at the basic level. So my identity that I craft for myself actually is like, you can do anything as long as you, I mean, at the core, you can actually deal with all those things. Whatever that comes next, actually, is not something that should be afraid of. Something that you can
Yes.
actually, manage. And that's I prove it myself as well. I've been, I mean, I was moving places as an expatriate when I was working for Ericsson. I was working for Hewlett Packard. I was working for Egon Zehnder International, a business consulting firm in Zurich. So I've been uprooting myself actually so many times, and I've seen it actually. The risk versus the opportunity is actually very asymmetric. Actually, there are more opportunity than the risk of abandon what I have mastered in the last 4 years. Because I have this 4 years, I always love to change place, change career, change role.
So,
I just grow, right? I just
yeah.
want to try, like, what are the limit of my capability, right? So that's why I think it reflected as well. The way I look at things, a little bit biased toward, more, I see more opportunity because, when you come from nothing,
Uh-huh.
everything else actually are opportunities, right? And also when you study as an engineer, you know that a lot of things actually can be solved, right? As long as it
Mhm.
doesn't really, cross with the law of physics, then I have my, like, yeah, it can be done. It's just maybe you don't really have enough knowledge right now. That's the only thing. So how do we, how can I actually improve my knowledge? How can I actually connect it to people who knows better than me that can actually help me? And that is
So
always
it's
my approach.
so is your DNA the way you think, right? But no practices like meditation or exercise, or how to say, walking a lot, or that you give as a
I exercise a lot, and people actually who knows me
Mm.
personally, they know I'm the guy that will prefer that there's nothing on top of my head. It has to be like no roof. So I'm always in the nature, which make it easier
Yeah.
as well to ground yourself, right? Because then there's nothing else. You need to be friend with yourself, right? Of course, the practice of
Yes.
meditation. You don't really need to cross leg on a mat, etc., etc. I call it a walking meditation. I go to the forest like
Yes.
regularly.
Yeah.
Every day I spend time actually in the forest. I have that kind of luxury
Mhm.
to do that because also when I go to the office, I have to pass through forest and then taking boat, etc.,
Mhm.
etc. So it's a little bit like dealing with real
And
atom life
you
rather
are
than it's.
an adventure sportsman, so to say, with paragliding and other stuff you do,
Yes, I'm a
right? So
I'm a
that
mountaineer, so
also,
I climb
how to say,
6,000, 7,000 meters. I
it
do cross
helps,
country
I can think.
paragliding. So
Yes.
I'm well trained dealing with a complex environment.
Hmm.
Where are a lot of complex, factors you need to take into account, especially when you fly in a big mountain like in Himalaya, or when you actually climb 7,000 meter in the border of China and Nepal, for example, right? There are a lot of things that you can't really control. There's a limit of your knowledge, even how to model all these factors, whether that
Hmm.
particular Serac actually is going to collapse or not. It's very difficult to make such a decision in such a tight environment, and you are exhausted as well, right? Because you're tired, for example, right? So I'm well. I mean, you exercise to make a decision in a very complex environment with very limited information, right? So there are a few things that you need to pay attention to because you can't really pay all this thousand stimulus around you in order to make such a decision, whether I should land it right now or not, because
Yes,
the
exactly.
cloud is coming, and then as well, you analyze all those things.
It's so
So
important. I'm finding more and more in life that it's in times like these. We had, as you know, for the conversation, mental health. Today is one of the areas of the meta crisis. So we had one for the conversation specifically on that, right? So that's why I think this question is so important, is how we take care of ourselves, because otherwise we can't take care of the world, or particularly not dealing with the meta crisis. So
exactly,
yeah.
I completely agree with you. It has to start with
Mm.
us, right? You can't
Yes.
really, offer something that if you're a mess inside as well, it's difficult. Or
Yes.
I mean, maybe you really
Mm.
believe I think you can be better than that particular version of yourself if you're stressed, right? I really
Yeah.
believe you can be a better person, a better
Yeah.
version of yourself when you're not
Yeah.
really like. Uh, sorry, you want to ask
Exactly.
something?
We need to have those practices. And I would like to bring now a little bit closer to the community, the 4D community, dreamers, doers, designers, and doubters that you are part of since the start. And of course, there are other communities working and looking at the meta crisis from different angles. We are just one among many, right? But what roles do you think, what role a community like the 4Ds or others realistically can play in this picture that we have with the meta crisis? And so what can
Yeah,
we do besides all the discussions that we have, very active discussions, right, all the time?
yeah. I see this for as an open town hall, right, where we can
Mhm.
actually bring up ideas, debate ideas, just, highlight our opinions on certain things. And I think that is it's a great platform for us to address some of these complex issues like what we have in a meta crisis, right? Because people are coming from a different angle; they are expert in different areas as
Mm.
well. Actually, it's very good to bring such a diverse view because it's a complex problem, right?
Mhm.
It's always good to listen to this different point of view before we actually make a decision in order to push. I give an example. They have put a policy paper that we can actually influence maybe the our representative at the Riksdag, right? In order to
Mhm.
take certain uh, decision, certain policy decision, since they touch on this money that we have, our tax. Of course, they have a bigger impact than just mere putting few opinion papers, for example, in public. I think that is more like pragmatic way of looking at it.
So, Gaspar, we have actually a town hall soon, I think on the 18th, so in 2 weeks. So let's bring up this opportunity. I don't think we discussed this actually before this. We think just a little bit in parallel, but not really very concrete on how to to influence policy, right? That can definitely be one. Um, if we besides that, the opportunity to influence politics, and so if we're having this conversation then 10 years from now, okay, 10 years from now we are having a new round of and recording like we are doing now, um, things have gone in a good direction. So what specifically, what has changed then?
Yeah. No, I think we are more eager and then brave enough in order to try a different way to tackle this
Mm.
meta crisis. We should,
Uh-huh.
or at least we luckily allow this approach to try different method to address this rather than stuck in one or two solution that we know might solve this.
Mhm.
Because anyway, we will learn a lot, right? This complex things that happen, it's very dynamic. We are dealing with uh, imperfect information in order for us to make decision, right? We should
Mhm.
actually encourage more trying, more experimentation in order for us to find the optimal way to address the challenge. And it's
Mhm.
not only in our small community, right? And I think even at the policy setting at the national level, we should allow this thing in order, or actually encourage people to be more innovative, try in order to learn and to build the knowledge. So when next time when the disaster actually is getting,
Mm.
and the disaster happen, actually we actually have the tool as well in order to avert and
Mhm.
actually maybe thrive on that particular challenge that we are facing as society. So that is, I think, I think if we are brave enough, because there are a lot of coward actually, to be honest, in our society. People is always like, yeah, afraid of doing things for the sake of, I don't know, maybe romanticism of the past.
Yeah.
I rather, being brave and then wrong, than being a coward and then being right.
So more bravery. We have been braver, and this leads a little bit to my last question, Gaspar, because if we look back, right, and if there is one question you think that we should be asking more about this time we are living, okay? If there is one question that, gosh, this is the question we should ask ourselves,
Yeah.
but we are not.
Yeah.
What would that be?
So for me, I will phrase it like this, Geraldo. If I don't
Mhm.
really fear, what can I do differently in order to deal with the opportunity or the problem that we are facing today? Because that will actually open up all this realm of possibilities that we might haven't really thought before. Because of course we are biased of fear, right? Because of the
Yeah.
savannah, our DNA actually
Yes.
is, you know, stitched in a way to avoid, getting eaten alive by the lion and then get taken away from the DNA pool,
Mhm.
right? But I don't really think that particular risk is there, right? The
So,
existential
so, so
risk.
to make it clear, for you is fear, the natural fear that we as humans have for everything that's new, and of course fear because even like you say from the savannah, this is the how do we? The question would be how could we have been free from fear or so, or
Yeah, I mean, exactly. No, if I'm not fearful on my reputation, on
Mhm.
my career, on my asset that I own, right? Will I do things differently?
Yes.
That I always ask myself, right? If you're not really afraid of this, will you do it? Like when I was decided to move on from Ericsson, right? And I said,
Mhm.
okay, because I have this decision matrix, I call it. I mean, I have a decision log. All this big decision, I actually have a log that record this state of my, you know, emotional
Gaspar,
state, whether I fear or
i- i-
not, and all this.
funny that you are bringing this with fear, and it's just coming up in my mind here. Something, a moment in life, because you know how I am, right? A little bit more of a fear person, worried, and so my wife had a period in life she was doing a lot of how to say writing in stones, different codes, and in a particular moment she wrote a stone. She gave it to me, and it was, "Don't let fear decide your future. Don't let your fear decide your future." This was beautiful in that moment in life, and I really needed that. Yes, so I really hold close to that stone. And just as an interesting thing on a personal level is that later on I met, I have a colleague at Ericsson that was very unhappy with his work, very unhappy. Okay. He wanted actually to be an artist, but he had a very good salary, and I didn't dare to leave a good job for something uncertain. So he was based actually in Canada, but we are having a workshop in Stockholm. So I collected all these stones from my wife, and we had at the workshop different. But this one I gave to him, okay, and apparently changed his life. He left the company, and now he's a successful artist. The last I heard about the stone, he did a hole, and he has with his keys, as as so he holds that the saying and is fading away a little bit because it's so many years, but the energy is there. What I want to say is that I think what you're saying, the whole interview, the whole way of looking at the meta crisis, it should be that we give this big stone of don't let fear decide our future as humanity, as human beings, right? Maybe that's exactly what we need.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for remind me of this episode in life that I was forgetting actually, but the power of
Yeah.
words, right?
Yes. I think we as a human, we have a lot of potential, right?
Mhm.
So I'm, there's no limit on the knowledge
Yeah.
growth, right? So I can't really say that we are going to get stuck. No, that's foolish of me to say that. It is just my limitation of understanding, what we are capable of, understanding what we can grow.
We can,
You know,
and you nailed it. I mean, to do all this, it has to be without fear, because fear paralyzes yourself, right?
yeah,
And then you can't act.
yeah.
Gaspar,
And I'm
meta.
worried that no, I'm sorry, this is just to add on. But I mean, it's just my reflection as well. Right? I doubt whether we can actually do nothing and then or move back to the past, right? Because
Yes,
past is not great as either, and I think it's higher risk for us to do nothing. To be honest,
yes.
the world is going to go, you know, they're going to a little bit more chaotic, right? Uh, as part of the system entropy. So I don't think we have an option just to let's do nothing, let's move back 30 years 40 years from now.
And, and I think you said once also, when you talk about meta opportunity, what excites me so much also is that if you just concentrate on the problems and that's a meta crisis, then it will happen,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
I mean, so the whole logic at fearlessly thinking what is the meta opportunity, that's the only way that maybe can help us. Not that, because I know that it's not the case, not that we just, how to say, hide or try to hide the problems. It's not that. But
No,
we
no,
have
no,
to
actually it's
pursue.
acknowledging. Actually it's I want to have I want to emphasize this one. Actually I'm acknowledging the meta crisis, but I'm using the
Mhm.
energy and the attention in order to see this as an opportunity in order for us to act, right? In order to avert this disaster. I'm not saying that we are in an apocalypse end of the world right now, but if we do nothing, I think we might be right. Right?
Exactly.
It should be something, right? This is the sad part. I mean, you might be right. I mean, if you do nothing, that this is a big
Then it's
issue
going to
later
happen.
on.
Gaspar, thank you so much to help
Thank you,
us
Geraldo.
see
It's nice to talk to
that it's
you.
a meta opportunity. And this is, I'm gonna carry that, and I think let's how to say, bring this forward, and the things that you brought up here, and how we can all work more fearless towards this, and the suggestions you had on how specifically the 4D community can work more, maybe with policy making and things like that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gaspar, for your time.
Thank you so much, Geraldo, for your time. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Take care.
See you.